Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and today I'm going to show you how to get your car ready to drift. In a couple of days, I'll be drifting with Club Loose, so I printed out their safety requirements to see what needs to get done to the drift stang so it could pass tech inspection. Tech inspection happens at the track where somebody qualified looks over the car before you go out onto the track to make sure the car is safe and it has all the required safety equipment. Now I'm going to be getting the drift stang ready to drift, but this same process applies to any type of motorsport, from drag racing to autocross to road racing. Just check the club that you're racing with and get their rules and regulations and read them over. And these safety regulations are pretty important. They're not meant to be there to be annoying. They're there to save your life if something goes wrong. So don't take shortcuts, even if you don't think it's necessary. So I'm going to show you the complete process of getting the drift stang ready to drift. And this video is going to cover installing a quick release fire extinguisher with all the brackets, installing tow hooks for the front and the rear of the car, and building a custom heat shield over the master cylinder. I'm also going to need a racing helmet, and I'm going to show you what to look for when getting one. And as always, everything I use in this video I'll link in the description below so you could easily find it. Also, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram and Facebook because I'm going to be updating you guys between YouTube videos and when I'm at different events with some really cool behind the scenes footage. And with that being said, let's get this car ready to drift. If you remember when I first got the car, I took an oil sample because who knows how she was taken care of before me. This is a good way to find potential problems with your engine. It's like getting blood work done, but for your car. And well, I got the results back. I'll leave a copy of my results in the description for you to look at if you're interested. But Blackstone Labs said that there's no coolant or water in the oil, and there's no fuel in the oil. And everything came back so that overall the engine looks like it's in good shape. They even wished me luck. Alright, so with that good news, let's get started, and the first thing we need to do is remove anything that's loose inside the car. And that makes sense for any motorsport. You don't want stuff flying around becoming a projectile in case of an accident, or even driving normally going sideways, something rolls underneath the gas, the brake, the clutch. And that also includes floor mats. So we have to remove all the floor mats in the front and in the rear. And luckily in my car, it's really cleaned out. There's nothing in the cup holders, nothing in the back seats, nothing in the trunk. And with everything removed from the car, I want to install this awesome custom shift knob that Racing sent me. Although this isn't a requirement to drift, we're inside the car, so now's a good time to install it. For this Mustang, all you have to do is unscrew the stock shift knob. It comes right off. I'm going to add a little bit of medium strength thread locker at the bottom threads. Screw on the base plate, snug it up. Add a little more thread locker for the adapter. Screw on the adapter and then snug it up. And then you just screw on the actual shift knob. Snug it up by hand, nice and tight so it doesn't come loose. Good. Check that out. It's cool because it matches the exterior color, and this thing is a solid shift knob. Now I'm all set to row through the gears on the track. And while the stock shift knob would have worked fine, this is a quick install and a nice touch. Now since we're in the interior of the car, let's work on the next safety requirement, and that's installing a fire extinguisher. The required fire extinguisher has to have a gauge at the top so you could easily read it and know it's full. It also has to be a 2-pound fire extinguisher. Also make sure that your fire extinguisher is good for both B and C type fires, since that's what you're most likely to encounter when you're driving a car. And the last thing is mounting the fire extinguisher. You can't use this plastic mount that comes with it because it's not strong enough in case you get into an accident, this thing could become a projectile. So instead, I have this quick release metal bracket that'll work perfect. And when you mount your fire extinguisher, what you want to do is you want to sit in the driver's seat just like if you're driving, and you can mount it anywhere within reach. You don't want to mount it all the way underneath the passenger side seat or all the way in the back or in the trunk where you can't reach it. The idea is if you get into an accident, the car's on fire and you're trapped in your car, you could easily grab your extinguisher, which will buy you some extra time. So since I have the interior still in this car, I can't really mount this near the center console, which is a good location. It's nice and easy to get to. So the next best location is underneath the seat in between your legs. It's out of the way, you're not going to kick it or anything, and I could easily grab it, even with my seatbelt on. So I'm going to install my fire extinguisher right here, and to do that I have a simple bracketeer kit. It's universal, and just so you have an idea of how it's going to get installed before I actually put it in the car, these attach to the seat brackets in the car, and then this is going to mount up to here like that. So that's how it's going to look, and it comes with all the screws. So let's go get these in there now. So the first thing we need to do is remove the 2 fasteners holding the seat down. Now after removing the nut that holds the seat bracket in place, we could slide our mounting bracket in place. And we've come across our first problem. So our fastener doesn't fit inside the mounting bracket. The washer is too wide. So to make this fit, I'm going to grind down the washer a little bit. This fastener is going to get hot, so grip it with the pliers. This will also keep your fingers away from the grinder. And perfect. Now this fits. So we can install our brackets, but keep them loose for now. Then install the crossbar and hand tighten those screws. With the crossbar in place, we could torque down the seats to 40 foot-pounds. And then we could tighten up the crossbar screws. Good. Now we could put the fire extinguisher ankle brackets on and tighten them down. Then finally add our extinguisher quick release mount and tighten those screws down nice and tight. And this extinguisher fits right in and clamps into place. And the setup is nice and sturdy. All right, check that out. We are done with our bracket. That looks really good. I just want to make sure that nothing hits when I move this forward. And perfect. Now let's see how it looks when I'm sitting in the driver's seat. So this is how it's gonna be when I'm driving, and check this out. If I have my foot on the brake and the gas over here and the clutch, it is nowhere near the fire extinguisher. And I could reach the fire extinguisher no problem in a case of emergency with my seatbelt on without really leaning over too much. I had to lean over just a little bit and I could get to it. Beautiful, so the fire extinguisher's in place, it's out of the way, it fits nicely, and it's easily accessible. And that's what you want when you're mounting a fire extinguisher. So with this mounted, let's go move on to our next step and put on our tow hooks. Now on some cars, tow hooks are easy to mount. On my Jaguar, there's a factory tow mount right down here in the front bumper. All you have to do is screw in the tow hook and you're done, you're ready to go. And it figures, unfortunately for the drift stang, it's not that easy. So I'm gonna be using one of these tow straps. But you can use a solid tow hook if you want, this is just my preference. And since there's no factory location, I mocked up this tow hook in a spot that I think is gonna work well. It's easily accessible, it's in the front, so I'm gonna have to find a spot behind the bumper to mount it. So we're gonna have to remove the bumper. Now for the rear tow hook, I'm gonna be using a soft tow hook, just like the front, but on the back, I'm gonna be installing a trailer hitch. Now you might be asking, why would you do that? Why would you install a trailer hitch on a Mustang? But think about it real quick. I'm gonna have to bring a lot of equipment. Tires, a jack stands, tools, more tools, my helmet, and there's probably stuff I'm not even thinking of right now. And this stuff takes up more room than I have in the drift stang. So what I might do is I might get a trailer or even build my own trailer, so this trailer hitch will work perfect. And then when I get to the track, I could disconnect the trailer and connect my tow strap, so then I have a place to tow from in the back of the car. So with that being said, let's install the front tow hook, and then we'll come to the back and install this trailer hitch so we could get the rear tow hook on there. So let's get the car up on ramps so it's easier to work on the front bumper. Now removing the front bumper cover on a Mustang is pretty simple. There's a couple of plastic clips up here that need to be removed, and anytime you remove clips like this, I highly suggest using a panel clip pliers. These things are lifesavers. They don't damage the clips, so you could reuse them, they just pop them right out, and I'll leave a link to these in the description for you. After you get those off, we come to the wheel well over here. There's a screw up here, a screw down here, and then if we look under here, there's a screw right down here. There's also two hidden screws back here. And also don't forget, if you have fog lights, remove the fog light pigtail. And then under the bumper, there's a couple of more plastic clips that need to get removed. From there, we could pop off the bumper and put it down on the grass so we don't scratch the paintwork. And let's get that foam out of the way so we have access to our crash bar. This is the crash bar we're gonna mount the straps to. And I'm thinking of mounting the tow strap right here. So let's hold it in place with the magnet so we could test fit it with the bumper on the car. And taking a closer look, there is plenty of clearance. So this looks like it'll be a good spot to mount it. So let's remove the bumper, remove the magnet, and mark where we're gonna drill the hole. Before you drill, lubricate your drill bit to keep it sharp. You wanna start out with a smaller drill bit and work your way up to a larger drill bit. Now add the bolt and use some thread locker to keep it from loosening up. Make sure you get it real tight. Good. Now we could add the foam, and the newly added bolt is preventing the foam from sitting flush against the bumper, so let's fix that. Just get a paint marker, add a bunch of paint to the bolt surface, and then push the foam back to where it was supposed to be, and that paint will leave a mark on the foam so we could cut it out exactly where that bolt head is. Now reinstall the foam. Look at that, no gap. That worked perfect. Now let's get the bumper cover on. And then you just have to connect the various fasteners at the top, at the side, underneath, all the ones that we took off before. But I just want to show you guys what this looks like. Setting the tow hook exactly where it's going to be. That looks awesome. It's clearly visible, you could easily see it, so if somebody needs to tow you out real quick, they're not looking around for it. When you tow, even at an angle upwards, it's not really pressing up against the bumper, which is good, so we won't damage the bumper, and there's plenty of room for side-to-side motion, and the car could get pulled out if I happen to go off the road. So with the front done, let's go and do the rear. Now for the trailer hitch, it does come with instructions, and the instructions don't say anything about removing the rear bumper. Just to make it easier, I'm gonna remove the rear bumper. And to do that, there's a bunch of screws behind the panel here. Under the bumper, there are a bunch of plastic clips, and if we come around to the side, there are 2 screws in the wheel well that need to be removed. And after you remove the screws and clips, the bumper comes right out. So after checking out the instructions, this is probably going to be one of the more difficult hitches to install because you actually have to drill holes. The only holes that we're not going to have to drill, we could use the factory bolt location for there and for here. So we're going to do those first, and then we'll be able to get our mounting points here and see where we need to drill. So this back mounting spot will be secured with that bolt right there. So remove the bolt, and that's one. And that's the other. Now let's go mock up the hitch. I'm using a jack to help support the hitch as I hand tighten the 2 bolts, which is going to hold the hitch in place. Now mark the place where you need to drill each hole, and then unscrew the bolts and remove the hitch so that we could drill our holes. Alright, let's see the spots that we marked. So there's one, and there's the other. Now the kit comes with a rectangular washer with a square cut into it and a bolt with a square head, and that's supposed to be inside this metal beam. And the instructions said to cut a 1-inch access hole, and I don't want to make this bumper Swiss cheese, so I have a better idea. I think we'll have an access hole like the front bumper if we remove this foam. So let's go drill out these rivets and then pull the foam out and see if we have access ports. Beautiful, just as I thought. Check it out, we have easy access so we can put those washers in without drilling extra holes. And one tip when you're using these really narrow drill bits is push them all the way in so you just have a little bit sticking out so you don't break them off by mistake. Now just like before, use lubricant on the drill bit and start drilling with a small bit and work your way up to a bigger bit. Alright, so this is looking good. So now let's go do this side. Now add thread locker on both bolts, and let's get the hitch back into place so we can fasten it down. Now add a washer, and then a split washer, and then a nut, and then hand tighten. Then with all 4 bolts in, torque them down to the specs listed in the directions. In this case, 40 foot-pounds. Alright, now our trailer hitch is securely mounted. All 4 fasteners are bolted in. Next we want to get the foam piece on, and then we want to reattach our bumper. Now we could slide in a grade 10.9 bolt and attach our tow hook. Tighten it down, and look at that. And just to test out to see if the tow hooks work, I got a block of wood. We'll do the rear tow hook first. I'll put it under here. While it's not that much force, it'll be enough just to see if it works rather than not testing it at all. Good, so it pulls the drift stang over the wood, no problem. And I could even pull my truck, no problem. And the front works as well. Now let's hope I don't have to use these. Alright, with the front and rear tow hooks installed, we have one more thing we need to do to get this car ready for drifting, and that's creating a heat shield for the master cylinder. The regulations say if your master cylinder is on the same side as your exhaust, which in this case we have exhaust manifolds on both sides because it's a V8. So if the master cylinder is on the same side of the exhaust, you need to have a heat shield. Now when you're racing, drifting, whatever motorsport you're doing on the track, you're going to be pushing the engine to the limits, which is going to heat up the exhaust more than usual. And you don't want that brake system to absorb that heat because that brake fluid could boil and then you'll lose your brakes completely, which would not be good. In this case, they don't make any heat shield specifically for my car, so instead, I'm going to show you guys how we're going to make our own out of this sheet of aluminum. Before we go cutting up our nice new sheet of aluminum, we're going to use a sheet of cardboard to make our initial design. And if you mess up, you could get a new piece of cardboard. So grab a marker and your cardboard and start marking up where you're going to make some cuts and where some bends are going to be. Once you do that, cut your cardboard out in the design that you think is going to work, and then test fit it. Good, this works real nice. Now we could translate this cardboard design to our aluminum. I'm using a cutoff wheel to cut the aluminum since it's a little too thick for the tin snips. Then file down the edges so they're not sharp. Now let's go test fit this. Perfect, this is lining up beautifully. If we take a closer look, you could see the cutout for the brake line right down there. The brake lines are not getting touched at all by the aluminum, which is exactly what you want. You don't want anything rubbing. So now we just need to create our 90-degree bend to go over the lid here. To make a 90-degree bend without any special tools, use something like a straight piece of wood and bend it against that. And I'd say that looks pretty good. Now with this in place, I want to make 2 more bends around the master cylinder, so mark the spots to bend, and then use that piece of wood again, And I'm using this piece of metal I had laying around to get me the shape I wanted for the other bend. So we got a nice couple of bends in here. The master cylinder is going to fit right in here, so this isn't going to rub up against it at any time. And I think you're getting the idea of how this works. It's a lot of test fitting, cutting, test fitting, and then cutting until you get it the way you want. And once everything's lined up the way you like it, I'm gonna go down here, and I'm just gonna get my marker, and I'm gonna go back and mark the hole that I'm gonna need to drill for the bolt. Now we can remove this. You can see our hole right at the bottom there. We're gonna go drill that out. Perfect. I'm also drilling a zip tie hole as well. Now I'm using foil-backed foam insulation tape, which is going to provide an extra layer of insulation for the master cylinder. And with that tape cut around the edges, it's time to mount the heat shield. It fits pretty good, and near the firewall, I'm going to zip tie it to hold it in. And we have one more thing we need to attach, although this thing isn't going anywhere, and that is using these bolts right down there. And we'll access that through the wheel well. So I'm just gonna sneak the bolt in from the other side. Now we'll tighten down the nut. Then I got this long extension I'm gonna fit in here. Tighten it down with the ratchet. And you wanna get it pretty tight so there's no movement and vibrations don't loosen it. And look at that. Now this is secured in there nice and tight. This isn't going anywhere. And that is how you make your own heat shield. It doesn't look cheap, it's functional. It's gonna protect this master cylinder from the hot exhaust manifolds, and we shouldn't have any problems with the brakes overheating. Plus, you could still get the cap off if you need, and you could see if you're running low on brake fluid for whatever reason. So that is perfect. And there's one more thing I want to quickly cover that you're going to need if you're doing any type of motorsport, and that is purchasing your very own racing helmet. The first thing is make sure your helmet meets certification. In this case, I need a Snell SA rated 2010 or 2015 or greater. So as time goes by, it might be an SA 2020 or an SA 2025 and so on. A motorcycle helmet that's just DOT rated won't be good enough because motorcycle helmets are made for a different type of impact than if you're inside a race car. I don't have any places to buy helmets near me, so I bought this online. You could actually easily measure your head. They show you exactly what to do, and my helmet fits perfect. Don't cheap out on helmets. Get something decent. This is to protect you and potentially save your life. Make sure it fits snug, it's comfortable, it's SA rated, and go out there and have some fun, guys. And that is how you get a car ready to drift. So in the next video, we're gonna go through tech inspection, and hopefully we make it through tech with no problems, and then you guys get to watch me learn how to drift for the very first time. Hopefully the video was helpful, and again, all products are listed in the description just in case you want a fire extinguisher, tow hooks, or racing helmet of your own. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. These next videos are gonna be a lot of fun. Let's see this drift stang get sideways. Stay tuned.